5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We are live. Coming through live, it's been live. The countdown to the Epstein files deadline, Dad, is tomorrow. 1 day, 2 hours, 58 minutes, and 22 seconds until the Justice Department is supposed to release the Epstein files. Say what's up to the people, Dad.
Hey, welcome to our very savvy, very smart audience. There's a poem which tries to epitomize the unique human condition. We look before and after and pine for what is not. We're going to do a little bit of looking before with respect to the Epstein files and looking after, that is, revisiting some critical elements of the Trump disastrous Oval Office address that were not obvious on our first read.
Right.
We did a lot of instant fact checking, some of which we didn't even need a fact sheet for, like in reducing your drug prices by 500 to 600%. That means if you buy a drug for $100, they've got to give you back $500, and you're 400 to the good for buying a big pharma's drug. Obviously impossible, obviously absurd. But we're going to revisit something else that's very important that Trump lied about and actually has real immediate implications.
No doubt. We will get to all of that. I want to shout out Cameron Horn, who just became a member. Remember, member costs less than a milkshake.
And is healthier. And
especially if you order it DoorDash or Uber, especially if you order it, plus the service fees and the tip. I mean, it's way cheaper than a milkshake.
You can, right.
Right.
You could buy several memberships for the cost of ordering a milkshake.
Now it's 28 hours, 56 minutes, and 31 seconds to the Epstein file deadlines. Let's get into our headlines for this evening. Our first one is, guess what, Dad? The Epstein files. With a court-ordered deadline approaching, pressure is mounting on the Justice Department to release the long-sealed Epstein files, though officials are already saying redactions and delays are likely. Ugh.
Congress acted to do something that the administration was not doing on its own, even though Trump promised time and again, oh, yeah, we're going to release those Epstein files. Just like, how long ago was that he promised to release his tax returns?
Oh, God, I don't even know.
I think it was 2015 or so, a decade ago. Have we seen any tax returns from him?
Of course not.
Trump, if you left Trump on his own, would we have seen any Epstein material?
No, I don't think so.
No, unless they, picked out the material with Bill Clinton in it and released only that.
Right.
Well, the only reason we've got this countdown and this deadline, Sam,
yes,
is Congress passed a law compelling the release by the end of the day tomorrow, Friday, December 19th. And, Trump and his toady, Mike Johnson, fought tooth and nail against compelling the release of the material. In fact, Toady Johnson,
that's hilarious.
I think that's very appropriate name.
I like it.
You like that?
Yeah.
We should publicize that far and wide. Refused to even have a vote, right, on the bill to compel the release of the Epstein files. How did they finally get a vote, Sam? Do you know?
I think a lot of the sort of MAGA core, like Boebert, MGT, they all turned on him.
Yeah, at least 4 or 5 of them turned to join the Democrats in making an end run around Toady Johnson. That is a so-called discharge petition, which if signed by a majority of the House within a week or so would compel the legislation to be brought up for a vote. And that really turned the tide. And all of a sudden, Johnson and Trump and Thune on the Senate side realized we're on the wrong side of this. This is going to happen. And far better that we get on board than we continue to resist and the pressure overrides us. In other words, they fought it as hard as they could until they realized they couldn't stop it. And then everything caved. Overwhelmingly, the legislation passed the House and the Senate and was signed by Donald Trump. But it has loopholes.
Oh, tell us what those loopholes are. Is it that the fact that
imagine that
they can't release anything that's part of an active investigation?
That's the thing.
Yeah.
That's the big loophole. And Trump and, his sycophant Bondi went ahead and began an investigation. And was this an objective investigation of anyone, related to Epstein as revealed in the material?
Maybe Bill Clinton. There's been some stuff that's come out about Bill Clinton since then.
No, you're way off base here, Sam.
Why?
They targeted only Democrats.
Sure, but you said, is there anybody involved that they're targeting? I said, well, Bill Clinton.
No, who have they targeted? Only Democrats.
Gotcha, okay.
None of the Republicans, including Donald Trump himself or Steve Bannon, his chief strategist in the White House.
True, there were lots of pictures of Bannon and Epstein. We saw that.
And new ones that just came out.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
There were the ones that came out a while ago and the brand new ones that came out yesterday also implicated Steve Bannon. But the law only applies to Democrats. Republicans are immune. Didn't the Supreme Court give blanket immunity to all Republicans?
No.
Not exactly.
I don't know. I don't know what you're referring to.
It only gave it to Donald Trump.
Yeah, the president. Right.
In official acts.
Right.
There was absolutely no legal reason why only Democrats should have been targeted in this investigation. It's, part of what Susan Wiles, the closest person to Donald Trump, his chief of staff, admitted. When he has a chance for retribution, he is going to go for it. In other words, justice is not blind. Justice has their eyes wide open and only focused on opponents of Donald Trump.
So do you think they're actually going to use this excuse tomorrow? Something is going to happen, and then they're going to say, well, we couldn't release XYZ because it's part of this active investigation. Do you think they're actually going to use that as an excuse tomorrow?
I'd say it's 70-30.
Wow. And what do you think is going to happen? I'll give you my prediction, and then you can give me yours.
Go ahead.
Or should you go first, and then I go
No, go ahead. You started this.
I think what's going to happen tomorrow is they are going to release something, but it's going to be a whole lot of nothing. And they might drag their feet on some other stuff that they say they'll release later, and then they might say some things they can't release at all. So I don't think they're just going to not release anything tomorrow.
I think that's zero chance of that.
Right.
I completely agree with you.
Oops.
They are going to comply with the law only in form, but not in practice.
Right.
That is, they will introduce nothing of significance unless it implicates Donald Trump's opponents. But I guarantee you there is going to be nothing in there implicating Donald Trump or any of his close allies. That, I would say, is 99-1.
What do you think the chances is that they come tomorrow and they don't release a thing? You think that's going to happen?
No, I think there's a very small chance. But it's not zero.
Before I was reading about it today, I thought there was no chance that was going to happen. But what I'm hearing is that they're sort of scrambling right now. They're trying to redact stuff. They're figuring out what they can and can't release. I could see them pulling something and saying, we filed for some sort of motion to extend, and then we just get nothing.
That wouldn't shock me.
Yeah.
That would not shock me at all. But here's what may be the saving grace, Sam. Here's what may, in fact, mean that we get some real information from this Epstein file dump. Their incompetence. We're going to talk about that in another session.
Right.
They're utterly incompetent.
Right.
And they might not be capable of making effective redactions of the material they're going to release.
Is there any penalty for them not releasing it tomorrow? Do you know?
They can be held in contempt of court, I guess, or in contempt of Congress.
I guess.
That's really the only penalty, and it's not very meaningful because it's the Justice Department. Are they going to prosecute themselves?
Right.
There is, an old, fairly obscure law which says, in fact, Congress itself has enforcement powers. Hasn't been used for about 100 years, but it is on the books that they can actually arrest and detain people in contempt of Congress. I don't think that's going to happen with the Republicans in control.
Well, I'm going to say the Congress is controlled by Republicans.
Everything's controlled by Republicans, which makes it so astounding. Just a little bit of a side here, that Donald Trump blames the Democrats, who haven't had any power for almost a year, for anything bad that's going on in the country. At any rate, no, there really isn't a severe penalty, except in the court of public opinion.
Right.
And they do care about that. Not that they can be shamed, but that public opinion could adversely affect electoral prospects, particularly in the 2026 midterm. We've already seen the Democrats, who aren't really held in great esteem, to tell you the truth, by the Republicans, absolutely trashing Republicans in the 2025 special and regular elections, outperforming the polls and expectations by double digits. And that does not bode well for the midterms. And you want to have as popular a president and administration as you possibly can have going into the midterms. You can't run away from the president of your own party in midterm elections. That never works, because that just turns off your base and people won't turn out on your behalf. So Trump's approval rating matters. Not, again, that it would shame him. He'll just make it up. He says, while his approval ratings are in the gutter, I have the greatest approval ratings ever. But people aren't buying that.
So both of us are predicting that they will release something tomorrow just to save face and quote unquote meet the deadline, but it won't be anything of substance.
That is my
most likely scenario.
Prediction. And frankly, the second most likely prediction is they won't release anything. They'll try to get an extension.
Yeah.
They'll claim they're, doing their level best to make sure that the victims, their names and identities are not revealed. We're trying to protect people. It's a long process. We're acting in good faith. We just need a little bit of more time. And the least likely, the third possibility, is they actually release something of real significance that isn't just focused on Democrats.
There's a fourth possibility, too, that they do release everything, but it's like tens of thousands of blacked out pages. That's a possibility, too.
That is also a real
Although,
possibility.
like you said, they're so incompetent, I don't think they've had the wherewithal to actually do that.
It would be very difficult.
That's a tough task to go through all those documents.
We're talking, many hundreds of thousands of documents here and photos.
What they could do, too, is they could pick the parts that, for example, implicate some Democrat, Bill Clinton per se. They can find 10 examples making Democrat look bad, and they say, okay, black out everything else.
That's going to be very difficult, because their excuse about an ongoing investigation focuses on Bill Clinton and the Democrats.
True.
So it'll be very difficult to release stuff pertaining to the active investigation and redacting or not releasing the other material.
Right. Well, we'll find out very soon. We will find out tomorrow what's going to happen. Something is going to happen. And whether it's nothing or something, something is going to happen.
Trump has tried to deflect, to delay, to obstruct, but this is his nightmare on Elm Street. More than any other issue, including issues that much more directly affect the well-being of the American people, like providing opportunities for decent health care insurance. This issue, is the nightmare. It's the Freddy Krueger for Donald Trump, even though there are so many other critically important issues, like maintaining the subsidies on the Affordable Care Act, keeping up the fight against catastrophic climate change, maintaining essential aid to the less affluent in Medicaid, Medicare, food stamps, reforming the tax system so that the wealthiest people like Donald Trump can't get away with paying nothing. These are some of the critical issues that Democrats should be pounding on, but somehow the public imagination is fastened more on the Epstein material.
Right. This, in terms of all the things that Trump is doing or involved in, this is probably, in terms of like the day-to-day lives of the average American, this probably affects that the least almost.
The least.
But it's almost the most top of mind for most Americans. It's funny how the world works.
Right. And as I said, the Democratic agenda should be focusing on, these 4 or 5 critical issues that affect people's lives, and that the Trump administration is completely whiffing on, despite all the lies he told yesterday. But as you say, you never know what is going to capture the public imagination. I was just making the point. I've seen this for the first time. There was some video about this woman who was divorcing her husband, and she was caught at a concert hugging her boss, and then dug. And you told me it got 100 million views. I couldn't believe it. Why would anyone care?
Well, you're like 5 months late on this news.
I know. But aside from that, you've educated me about the strangest things that go viral. You never know what is going to capture the public imagination.
Absolutely. And that Coldplay concert video, in terms of like brain rot, dumb stuff that goes viral, that's not even top of the list of stupid things.
I don't want to know.
Yeah.
I don't want to know.
Dad, Trump is rebranding an existing congressionally approved military housing subsidy as the new, quote, warrior dividend bonus, which he announced during his address to the nation on December 17th. Now, this is drawing criticism that it's political branding and not actually any new money for soldiers.
It's even worse.
Really?
Than the fact that it's political, I would call it political pandering, not political branding.
You've been really good with the taglines.
Yeah, I've been hitting them hard.
Toady Mike, the Trump infomercial.
Yep. The political pandering. And it's a bribe. It's nothing more than, this is what Trump has done throughout his life. He'll either intimidate you or bribe you.
It's being used as from money that's already supposed to go.
I'm going to get to that.
Okay.
That's very important.
Yeah.
I'm going to get to that.
Okay.
I just wanted to make one point. It's kind of Trump's version of the old cartel idea, silver or lead. Either you can take a payoff or we're going to make your life miserable. There's sort of no alternative there. And here's what's really worst about this. Where did Trump tell us the money was coming from?
Tariffs.
An outright, bald-faced lie. And I will use the word lie. It is not coming from tariff revenue. That would require an act of Congress. It is being robbed from the $2.9 billion housing fund that Congress allocated to upgrade the disgracefully awful housing for our indispensable, brave troops. They're not getting any big bonus. He's taking from one hand and giving to the other. And you're going to be able to upgrade your housing with $1,776, Sam?
No.
Not a chance. Not even close. So the miserable living conditions that so many, particularly of our enlisted troops, have to endure are going to continue, despite this bribe, which is not going to come close to improving, upgrading military housing. This is like what he did when he diverted money from the military budget for his border wall in his first term. And who did he claim? And, even after he was elected, who did he claim was going to pay for the border wall?
Mexico.
And how many pesos did Mexico give us for the border wall?
Zero.
So not only did Trump blatantly lie about this, but it's not something that is a clear benefit for the troops. You're, on the one hand, taking away, and on the other hand, giving. And I would say that taking away may well outweigh the giving.
No doubt. The Trump administration and House...
I want another point about that. I presume this bonus is going to everyone, including the upper echelon of the command. who don't have the housing problem, who don't need the money. So you're taking money away from ordinary soldiers and sailors who need the housing upgrade and giving it to people who don't need the money and don't need the housing funds.
Interesting, yeah. Dad, the Trump administration and House Republicans are moving aggressively to restrict transgender care for minors, unveiling HSS rules to cut federal funding, while the House passed a bill that could criminalize providers and ban Medicaid coverage.
It's another example of the many things we've seen coming out of health policy of this administration, of policies based on their biases, not based on science or medicine. They haven't presented any evidence showing that gender affirmative care is detrimental to the very tiny number of people who need and get such care. You would think, what did Trump talk about? Gender affirming care for everyone? They're creating this myth that hundreds of millions of people are getting gender affirmative care.
I mean, this is part of their culture war.
Yes, when it's a tiny, minuscule, unmeasurable fraction of the population. And the scientific evidence demonstrates for this very small group, not gender affirming care for everyone, it's beneficial physically and mentally for them. So it's just another example of defying science and adopting policies based upon prejudice, biases, and politics.
No matter where you are on the transgender debate, I mean, there's so many debates within the transgender debates, but what I fear is when you start banning coverage for some of these transitionary procedures, these teens are going to find a way to do it. Right.
It's the same thing when abortion was banned.
That's my point. Yeah.
People still got abortions,
right?
But they did not get them safely.
Exactly, and that's what I'm afraid of. Is that young teenagers who are wanting to transition, they're gonna find a way to do it. They're gonna whatever drugs they need to do. I'd rather them get them from a doctor. I'd rather them approach a doctor.
The tiny percentage.
Right.
This is also like this whole war on drugs. People are going to get drugs if they want the drugs. That's been true for, so many decades. No matter what you try to do in the war on drugs, people are going to find their way to get the drugs. Maybe not safely or cheaply, but they'll find a way. Just like, as you say, in the old days of abortion bans, you had all these dangerous black alley abortions. And if you ban gender affirming care, they're going to find a way to do it in a much less safe and much more expensive way.
Exactly. The Center for International Policy argues that Trump's blockade of Venezuela could legally constitute an act of war and says Congress, not the White House, must decide the next steps.
Yeah, this is a leading authority on geopolitics and the law of war. There is no question that a blockade is an act of war. The United States, almost during the early republic, went to war over a British blockade of American trade. We came very close to a shooting war. When Kennedy stopped the supply ships from supplying the offensive missile sites on Cuba, he set up a blockade, but he didn't call it a blockade. You know why?
Tell me.
Because he knew a blockade is an act of war.
Oh.
And he did not want to get embroiled in the possibility of a war with the Soviet Union. So you know what he called it?
Tell me.
A quarantine. Even though it was in effect a blockade, he tried very hard not to make it look like an act of war. No such subtlety or ingenuity from Donald Trump. This blockade is clearly an act of war, and perhaps a prelude, as this article and many other articles by authorities in the field warn, a prelude to an all-out land war against Venezuela. Two huge issues here. Number one, as this authority points out, you need an act of Congress to go to war. Should be a declaration of war, but that hasn't been honored since World War II. But at least some kind of authorization from Congress, particularly since in the 1970s they passed the War Powers Act requiring authorization from Congress. You know, it's bad enough and it's horrific that Trump, on his own say-so, on his own whim, is blowing up these alleged drug smuggling boats and killing dozens of persons. But to launch a land war on his own initiative, in my view, is clearly an impeachable offense, although obviously a Republican Congress is not going to impeach him. Second thing is, what did Trump promise he would do when he became president?
Get us out of foreign entanglements.
Get us out of these democratic foreign wars and foreign entanglements and focus only on the homeland.
When's the last time a Democrat administration took us to war? Vietnam? I mean, weren't all the Gulf Wars under HW,
Gulf War,
Iraq, Afghanistan were under George
all
W?
These wars were, you have to go back to Vietnam for a significant, and you know, that was 1965. Under Republicans, you had the invasion of Panama, you had the Gulf War, you had the war in Iraq, you had the war in Afghanistan. Now, conceivably, you're going to have a war in our own hemisphere against Venezuela. And no question, Maduro's a bad guy. But how many bad guys are there around the world, Sam? Many of whom are much worse.
A lot.
A lot. Moreover, we've gone over this before. And what is the history of American forcible regime change in Latin America?
Not good.
Absolute disaster. It's made bad situations much, much worse. Do we really want to, despite all the oil, do we really want to take responsibility for a new regime in Venezuela?
I don't.
I don't think the American people do. 70% in the poll that I saw were against a shooting war in Venezuela. 70%. That includes quite a few MAGAs.
Right. A growing list of procedural mistakes and legal missteps is raising alarms about the credibility of Trump's Justice Department. Tell us more, Dad.
Yeah. This fits in with the point we made earlier, Sam, right?
Right.
That, you know, they're so incompetent, who knows how they may be handling the Epstein material. We've already seen their utter incompetence in their flailing, failed attempt to indict James Comey and Letitia James. The indictments were thrown out because they put in a total incompetent, Lindsay Halligan, an insurance lawyer who had never prosecuted anyone as a U.S. attorney illegally. That was overturned. And then they tried twice to re-indict Letitia James. And what happened in those two attempts, Sam?
Failed.
You know, the old saying is, you can indict a ham sandwich. Well, anyone can, apparently, except the Trump administration. And we know that their briefs and their indictments are filled with grammatical, spelling errors, legal errors. The magistrate judge blasted the Justice Department in their Comey indictment, saying, you know, they made substantial legal errors. And here is just an astounding statistic. 21% of attempted indictments on the part of the Trump administration have failed, compared to an average of 0.5.
Wow. What?
0.5 over the during Democratic administrations. 0.5% versus 21%.
That's wild.
That is absolutely wild. You know, I couldn't believe it when I read that statistic.
Oh, you're done.
I'm done for the moment. Are we done with all our...
We had one more. We have one more topic.
Go for it.
Is that okay?
Yeah, I'm just checking that. Checking the statistic here. Go ahead.
Oh, you're double checking.
I'm good.
Okay. The White House says it plans to dismantle the National Center for Atmospheric Research, a cornerstone of U.S. climate science, triggering backlash from scientists nationwide.
You know, they have already crippled our scientific apparatus designed to detect dangerous weather patterns, to combat catastrophic climate change, and to issue early warnings to people threatened by climate disasters. And this would be one of the worst elements. This is a very advanced operation that's been built up over a number of years and is critical to scientific research into climate and to develop early warning systems about climate catastrophes, which have claimed many lives and cost many, many billions of dollars. And there's absolutely no rationale for this, except they claim, this is a critical agency promoting the myth of climate change. They've called climate change a religion. Climate change is a myth. This is another classic example, Sam, of projection. In fact, the anti-climate change community are the ones basing their claims on religion and on mythology. 98%, almost 100% of scientists who publish in peer-reviewed journals agree that climate change is an existential threat to our survival and well-being on the planet and is significantly caused by human activity. There is almost no scientist who is not associated with the fossil fuel industry who counters this overwhelming scientific consensus on climate change. You rarely get such a scholarly consensus on any issue. It's not as if the issue is weak. It is one of the strongest, most well-established scientific research results. And yet here they are projecting their own biases and further threatening our survival and well-being on the planet. Here it is. Here's the data that I cited. This is in D.C. Dismissal rate of criminal complaints in D.C. reaches 21% as compared to 0.5% over the prior 10 years. That's astounding.
Yes.
That's over 40 to 1.
That's a lot. That's a big difference. We have some breaking news coming in right now.
Wow, you're on top of it, Sam.
Into Lichtman Live. A person, the person of interest in the Brown shooting has been found dead in New Hampshire. Authorities found the man's body in a storage unit in Salem, New Hampshire. Two law enforcement officials say they added that they believe he was also connected to the killing of an MIT professor this week.
Wow.
So this is coming in just now into the news.
And this MIT professor was one of the leaders in the efforts to develop clean, renewable sources of energy. Yes. So I wonder, if there is ideological motivation. Going after a major Ivy League university, killing a prominent, scientist involved in the development of clean energy.
I didn't realize that they thought he was connected to the MIT killing as well.
I didn't either. But this whole thing was just another example of botched investigation by the incompetent, what's his name?
Pash Patel.
Yes.
No, Patel.
Cash Patel. I got
Patel.
it. Patel. Cash Patel. I got it. Who also apparently, according to press reports, is corrupt. A combination of the lazy, the corrupt, and the incompetent, using federal resources for personal use, including involving his girlfriend. That's, an absolute no-no. You worked for the federal government. Wasn't that one of the things they drilled into your head? You cannot misuse federal resources for personal purposes.
We live in a world where the common man has to follow the rules to a T, or
To
else
a T.
they're in massive trouble, and people in power can just pretty much do whatever they want. Yeah, they used to drill that into us and scare us into like don't even think about doing anything like
Don't
that.
even take government paper clips.
Right, basically, yeah.
Or take a ride on a government, auto.
Right. All right, let's move into the next section of our show, which is our Q&A portion of the show. We have a new system here. We used to put the drink on the desk with all the computers, but that was far away. I'd have to reach forward and all that.
Heaven forbid.
We moved it to this desk, and all I have to
Wow.
do is turn and hand him his soda. Coke Zero tonight, folks.
Coke Zero tonight.
No,
I'm not recommending it for you.
not a sponsor. Let's get into the next portion of our show, which is our Q&A section. Donations and memberships get priority. I want to give a quick shout out to George Politis, who, man, he's been a generous
Is he
donator.
the Australian?
Yes, he's the Australian.
He's been amazing. Thank you.
He's been a generous donator for a while now. Thank you to George for your donation tonight. If you have a question for this guy, you can become a member and have consistent questions going. If you got something on your mind that you really want to ask, but you don't want to be a member, we also take donations.
And, we really need it because there's a lot that goes into this. The big television outlets, they spend tens of millions of dollars to put on, their talking heads. We're doing it on a shoestring. So, anything you can donate or becoming a member really helps us to keep going. It's amazing, how much time, energy, effort goes into keeping us alive.
The show alive.
The show, yeah. Well, maybe me too.
The show. Let's say the show.
Fair enough.
We have over 800 people watching, but only 300 likes. If you would give the stream a like, it would help us a lot. I've noticed that as the likes go up while we're live, the stream does better. So I'd appreciate that a lot. If you're not subscribed, click subscribe right now. Turn on that notification bell.
All
so
this
you go
helps
live.
us. And it's, no cost to you to give us a like or subscribe.
And I want to give a shout out to people who watch post live. We get tens of thousands of people who watch not live. So shout out to you too.
On our election night show, we had 110 post watchers.
Pretty good.
People who watched the video after it was live.
All right, our first question is from one of our very great members, Axel Moreno. They say, what are your thoughts on Epstein's brother saying that Bill Clinton isn't, quote, Bubba? That's in relation to an
Blowing
email.
Bubba.
Yeah, blowing Bubba email that Epstein's brother sent.
Who the hell knows? A lot of the Epstein material is very cryptic.
Yeah.
Epstein is not very out front in saying things. Although that makes it all the more remarkable when he said, of course Trump knew about the girls. So wouldn't surprise me if Bubba's just made up and is not Bill Clinton at all.
It could be an inside nickname,
Could be anything.
I mean, Bubba,
Yeah.
it's a pretty common nickname. People call their grandmother Bubba, don't they?
No, that's Bubby.
Bubby, yeah,
Bubby.
yeah, okay.
But a lot of Southerners are called Bubba.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you to Ms. Nika for a $20 donation. Appreciate
Yes.
that. They say, thanks for all you do. This is from Ben Weinberg. They say the Supreme Court announced that they will hear Trump's case on birthright citizenship. You said you will file a amicus brief with the court. Have you filed it?
I will, but they haven't made the call yet. They're not hearing this until next year. So my understanding is it would be a little bit premature to file an amicus now. I'm not even sure you can, but it would just get lost. We want to file it more proximate to the case. But yes, it's not just me. We filed an amicus in the disqualification case, the Colorado case under the 14th Amendment, and we had something like 30 prominent historians joining the brief, and we hope to do that again. It's not just going to be me, although I'll probably again take the lead.
Does the ACA stand a chance? Anything to do with Obama drives Trump crazy, even though he probably doesn't understand what it is. I would love for it to succeed for that reason, but truly for the 20 million people who would otherwise suffer.
It's just tragic that, they will not maintain these subsidies, which 20 million people depend upon and which have a ripple effect. Not only are those prices going to go up, but it's going to have a ripple effect on the entire insurance market, raising the price for everyone. And, for when did Trump first say, I'm going to have a better health care plan than the Affordable Care Act?
I don't know.
8, 10, 7 years ago. And just recently in the debate, he said, I have concepts. And they really haven't moved beyond that. It's absolutely tragic. And we're obviously going to have to depend upon a new administration. Although, remarkably, it's another issue on which there was a revolt against Toady Johnson in the House, another discharge petition, in this case to have a vote on maintaining the subsidies. I don't know how such a vote would come out, but if there's a majority for a discharge petition, there's likely a majority for the increase, although Johnson may just dismiss the House, so there won't be a vote until next year, and the fate in the Senate is very dubious, and would Donald Trump sign such a thing? Who knows?
And they have this line, Trump used it in his address last night. They have this line about how they're going to get rid of the ACA and you're going to be able to choose what insurance you want again, and all problems will be solved. But that's just the way it was before. And
it was a disaster.
Yeah, I don't understand even what they think the rhetoric behind that is and how it's effective.
Here it is. It's the same Trump bribery approach. I'm going to bribe you. I'm going to give you money. Imagine that. You're going to get money. And you don't have to, go through all this government rigmarole. You can buy your own insurance, and we're going to give you money to help you with that, right? Number one, there isn't such money. We're still running a big deficit. Number two, who are they going to buy their insurance from?
Right, the insurance
companies. And there won't be any of the protections of the Affordable Care Act.
Right, doesn't make
that are
any
going to
sense.
protect 40 to 50 million people with pre-existing conditions, or allow kids to stay on their parents' plan until they're 26. It's just going to be right back into the disastrous system we had previously. It's going to be a huge spike in the uninsured, and American health is going to be right on the decline, as will be also pushed forward by the quack who runs HHS, RFK Jr.,
Quack, quack.
who is undermining one of the great pillars, one of the great triumphs of American medicine and healthcare over the past 100 years. Why have our life expectancies gone up from late 30s to 70s? 3 things: antibiotics, hygiene and sanitation, and vaccines.
We have almost 900 people watching, but only 426 likes. Don't forget to like the stream. The stream. This is a $5 donation from Super Game Player. They
All
say,
right.
The job market is really bad right now, especially for new college graduates. Do you think this could impact the midterms if it drags on?
No question.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah, people's personal economic situation is of critical importance. And, Trump can keep trying to blame through, next year, blame Biden, Barack Obama, Franklin Roosevelt, Woodrow Wilson, whoever. As Herbert Hoover, someone who should know, said, when you're the president, you get the credit for the sunshine, but you get the blame for the rain.
Ain't no sunshine when it rains.
That's pretty good. Don't ask me to do that.
Do it.
Not a chance.
Okay. This is from one of our members, Miss Alali. They say, the U.S. aggression towards Venezuela reminds me of Nazi Germany in the lead up to World War II. Do you think that Pete Hegseth's actions will be accounted for at The Hague?
Oh, I wouldn't be surprised if he is sanctioned by the International Criminal Court. Does he care? No. He probably would see that as a badge of honor. We're not signatories, so they have no power over the United States. And he'll say, see, these lunatic commies,
right,
in these effete Europeans, it just shows how strong and what great warriors we are. And in my view, and I published a whole article on this, they've already committed a horrendous war crime based on World War II precedent when they executed the 2 survivors of the very first strike they did on an alleged smuggling boat on September 2nd. Survivors who had done nothing but cling to wreckage for nearly an hour, and then they blew them up. A clear criminal war crime, which was committed during World War II when a submarine blew apart a British transport, and they then executed the survivors. 5 leaders of the sub were found guilty, and the crime was so severe that 3 of them were sentenced to death and executed. That's how bad this kind of war crime is. It's not a minor issue.
Member Kenneth Southwood. That's a very southern sounding name, or maybe English sounding name. Kenneth Southwood.
Very good, Sam.
Thanks. They say, I just got to say, I think it was pure stupidity that Trump thought that other countries were going to take the tariffs laying down and not expect those countries to launch their own tariffs to offset them. I also can't believe how close my birthday was to Professor Lichtman's first prediction, which was March 27th, 1982, my birth date.
Wow.
Wow.
I'm sure that's why I got it right, because, it coincided with your birthday. Never underestimate the stupidity of Donald Trump and his cronies.
For sure, idiots.
Maybe he's not stupid. In one sense, he's not stupid. He's very cunning. He's very crafty. He's very good at obstruction, attack, deflection, delay. But when it comes to understanding something, when it comes to having some perspective on things and some in-depth knowledge, he has none.
Very true, Dad. This is from Ben England. They say,
wow.
Why do you say wow?
England, yeah.
What?
I'm assuming, we're reaching abroad.
That's his name, not where he's from.
Well, you don't know. He might have taken it on.
I think I've called this guy before, and I made the England joke, and he said he's not from England.
Oh, well.
Okay.
We probably do have people from England. We know we have Australians.
All right, I want everybody who's from abroad to put your country's flag in the chat right now.
That would be great.
Okay.
Will you recognize the flags?
Most of them, I think.
Oh, very good.
I'm pretty decent with flags.
You're good on geography.
I'm good on geography. Flags, I'm a little less good at, but hey, we can't win them all, right, Dad?
Right.
All right, let's get back to Ben England's question, not from England. They say, it seems like the Supreme Court may vote to overrule the tariffs, but otherwise the Supreme Court is basically rubber stamping everything Trump does. Why is the tariff issue different?
Because this is a very explicit law that Trump has invoked to justify the tariffs. That's never been used to justify tariffs. And for the so-called originalists, who believe you got to stick to, the original meaning of the law, which was never meant to cover tariffs, this may be an issue on which they can take a stand and also kind of demonstrate their independence from Trump. But it may mean nothing, because Trump will go ahead and find another statute to justify his taxes. Then you'd have to start all over again, right, in going through the lower courts, the appeals court, and getting back to the Supreme Court. That's the problem with dealing with someone who has no morality, no respect for the law. You slap him down in one way, he'll find another way to do what he wants. And then you got to start the whole process all over again. It's incredibly frustrating.
All right, I'm seeing a bunch of different countries in the chat. I'm seeing Austria, Canada, New Zealand, Australia.
UK?
I haven't seen a UK flag come up. Oh, someone said Peru.
Peru, wow.
Someone said Somalia. I don't believe that you're watching from Somalia. I'm going to be honest with you.
It's possible.
It's possible, but highly unlikely. Our next question, $10 donation from Free Throw Guy. Let's see your best free throw form.
I have a sore shoulder. Can't do it. I forgot. My free throws, are pretty good. Before surgery, anyway.
Were they?
Yeah.
They're okay, yeah. They went downhill over time.
Hey, implying age-related decline?
Oh, I see a UK flag.
All right, I knew we had someone from the UK.
A lot of USA.
USA. All right, next question.
Oh, I see a Mexico.
Nice.
Sam. Oh, I guess this one's for me. My brother didn't go to the last No King protest because he believes protests won't break the hardcore MAGA vote or base. How can I convince him otherwise? I'm probably not the best person to ask because I've been a little bit cynical about protests. Here, you answer that question.
Historically, protests have mattered. It was protests and the response to them that was essential for the passage of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, the Voting Rights Act of 1965, protests by women for equal rights was extremely important in Congress authorizing the Equal Rights Amendment, although it came just short of being ratified by the states, but also other critical legislation liberating women like the Title IX Act on Discrimination Against Women in Education. So yes, in the past, it has worked. It has mattered. And you don't immediately see the results. It took a very long time. You could date the post-World War II civil rights movement. It's really burst into prominence in 1954. You know what Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks did in 1954? The famous Montgomery bus boycott. And it took a decade before you got the Civil Rights Act. It's hard to counsel patience, but
Right.
It matters.
I hear you. I'm seeing South Africa and I'm seeing Trinidad and Tobago.
Wow.
Pretty
Awesome.
cool. Stat Brat Stacy says, I'm pleased that Jack Schlossberg is getting into politics. Do you think he's peeved that Trump attached his name to his grandpa's namesake, the Kennedy Center? Did you hear that about this?
It's now the Trump Kennedy
Center.
Center.
The board hasn't voted on it yet, but it's pending a board vote to change the name of the Kennedy Center to the Trump Kennedy Center.
Just horrific. Trump wants to put his name on everything. He wants to be on Mount Rushmore.
That's what he's been doing his whole life.
That's what he sells. He doesn't build anything.
Right.
That's a great myth. And, we've talked about this before. So many of his projects have crashed and burned. He's walked away, but, investors have, lost their shirt. So, yes, it's a travesty, and I'm sure every member of the Kennedy clan is absolutely livid. But it's not permanent. Like so many other things that Trump has done, it's not enshrined in law. I'm not even sure he can do it without an act of Congress, but who's going to stop him?
Why doesn't he get his own thing? Like the Trump Kennedy. Get your own thing. The Kennedy Center is named.
Because he can't build anything. He doesn't know. Look at the disaster of this ballroom.
Right.
What do we have so far? A pile of rubble because he destroyed the East Wing. Originally, it was going to cost $200 million, right?
Right.
Then it went to $300 million. And now it's at $400 million.
Right.
And who knows, how that is going to skyrocket from here. That is typical of his failed enterprises across the globe as a builder in Fort Lauderdale, in Tampa, in Canada, in Puerto Rico, in Eastern Europe. These venues are littered with failed Trump building projects.
So Josh, I didn't know or Jack
Schlossberg, the grandson.
Yeah, I didn't realize who he was. He's the grandson of JFK.
JFK's grandson, yes. His daughter's son.
Right. Caroline Kennedy.
Schlossberg's
son. Edwin Schlossberg's son. Who's Edwin Schlossberg? He's an American designer, artist, and author.
Yes. Not as famous as the Kennedys, but...
Jack Schlossberg is my age. I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Wow. Yale and Harvard. That's where Jack went to school.
Pretty good.
Pretty good.
Maybe not as good as Brandeis and Harvard.
I was going to say, almost as smart as you. Wow, we almost have 900 people watching. We're almost to 600 likes. Don't forget to like the stream. I was going to also say that depending on exactly what happens tomorrow with the Epstein files, we might come on for a special broadcast.
Right.
So,
If they don't release them at 11:59 p.m.,
well, maybe we will go on live at 11:59.
we may. Let's say this to everyone listening, and everyone's going to follow up and watch our broadcast. We are going to commit to going live as soon as the files are released, and we have some idea of what's in them.
So you're saying we're definitely going live
we're
tomorrow?
definitely going on air
okay.
as soon, not just when they're released, but when we at least have from the journalists who follow this some limited idea of what's in
But
them.
we won't go live if they kick the ball down the road. If they say
if they do kick the ball down the road, we won't go live.
Okay, gotcha. All right, we got about 5 minutes left.
I can go on with some more questions.
All right, here we go. One of the biggest backlashes I've seen lately is to AI data centers. Even in deep red counties, people are showing up and making their voices heard against them since they pollute these communities, their air, their water, and increase electricity bills. Should Dems make this part of their affordability argument and, more importantly, take action against their development?
Absolutely. And Sam's mom, one of the great American political organizers, Karen Strickler, is very much involved in this. She grew up on a farm. Yes, I married the farmer's daughter, and I'm so happy about it. In a deep red county, Carroll County, Westminster, Maryland, famous for the pumpkin papers that implicated Alger Hiss as a spy, Whittaker Chambers' pumpkin papers. It's deep red. Carroll County, one of the most conservative counties in Maryland, and the farmers and the landholders, they are fighting tooth and nail, even though they are staunchly conservative, against the power lines that would run through their communities to power one of these data centers. So we've seen it up close and personal, but as Karen Strickler has pointed out, it's a major national issue, and we may well have a future show on it.
The Pilgrims landed at Plymouth on this day in history. Is that true? December 18th?
I think that's right.
Many people want Plymouth Rock to be removed because some say it marks the beginning of a genocide of indigenous people. Should Plymouth Rock be removed?
Oh, boy. That's a no-win question, isn't it?
Yeah.
There's arguments on both sides. Yes, the European settlers did engage in horrific practices against the indigenous peoples. Warfare almost began, in the early part of the very first European settlements. But on the other hand, it is an important historical milestone, and you can't just blanketly condemn all the European settlers and the civilization that they built.
Is there there's a literal rock there?
There is a literal monument that's a rock,
I
yeah.
see.
Whether they actually landed up,
Right,
it's another matter.
There's a lot of rocks on the
Massachusetts
that coast. Yeah, so I don't know. Is Gorbachev viewed more negatively in Russia today because of economic hardships of the 1990s or because of the collapse of the USSR, which hurt national identity and global status?
Well, I'm not an expert on public opinion in the current Russia, but from what I know, you probably put your finger on both. I wouldn't say it's just one or the other.
Chris Thompson says it's a tiny rock.
Yes.
I don't know.
It's just a monument.
Gotcha.
I don't know if I've actually been there. Have you?
I don't think so.
If I have, it was 50, 60 years ago.
I mean, I've lived in
Massachusetts. Don't really remember.
I lived in Massachusetts
so have I.
for 3 years. But
yeah, but I lived there 60 some odd years ago.
How old are you? How could you live somewhere 60 years ago?
I first came to Massachusetts as a freshman at Brandeis University in 1963.
What? No, that has to be made up.
1963. I was a freshman in college. I graduated in 1967. So in 2027, I will have my 60th college reunion. I've already gone to my 60th high school reunion.
What?
Where I was the only one with a head of hair.
Nice.
All right, one more question.
All right, one more
question.
Done? No, well, let's do one more.
One more.
This is from Bobby Grout. They say, "Hello, Allan and Sam. I've been watching you for 2 years, but I am new to the membership." Well, welcome.
Welcome.
After the presidential election, quote, red wave last year, things got really scary in this country, and my wife and I stopped watching the news for a while. It seems like things are getting better, I hope. I just wanted to let you know that you two were a beacon of hope in a dark world, and I thank you all for all that you guys do. Keep up the hard work. Thank you.
Thank you. And that helps offset, the death threats we got, the doxing, the swatting, the 2 break-ins. So we really appreciate it.
Yes, we really appreciate it a lot. Hopefully things will get better. I don't know.
Not quickly, but
not quickly, but
hey, the Civil War lasted 5 years. Both sides thought the Civil War would be over lickety-split. The South thought they would win quickly because they had better generals. The North thought they would win quickly because they had more armaments, larger population. They were both wrong. The war dragged on for some 5 years. So we've endured some terrible... The Great Depression really lasted, I would say, almost a decade.
Yikes. But the point is we got through it.
We got through them all.
Yeah. All right. With that, we will wrap up Lichtman Live for this evening. Remember to stay tuned. Keep an eye out on our socials, on YouTube for when we will go live tomorrow. Who the hell knows what's going to happen tomorrow? But if something happens, we will be live. If they kick the ball down the road, we'll probably just skip the live. I want to thank each and every one of you for watching, whether you're watching live or you're watching in the future. If you're a post show, or if you watch after we go live, we appreciate you too. We're almost at 600 likes, so if you're still tuned in, throw a like before we sign off the air. Dad.
And you can even donate still, right?
I mean, you can donate at any time.
Anytime. It's easy. Yes.
What are your final words to the people?
Freddy Krueger.
Ah!
Freddy Krueger.
Ah!
Yes, and we will be on top of his return.
Ooh.
Whoa.
That is scary.
Yes.
Very dark foreshadowing. All right, folks.
The
have a good
Nightmare
night.
on Epstein's Island.
That's a good one.
Yeah, I've been hitting them tonight.
Man, you're on fire. All right, folks. Good night.